You are listening to Within Tolerance, a podcast for machinist by machinist. I'm your host, Dylan Jackson of Proteum Machining, and this week I am back with my catch-up co-host, Chris Zapatini. What is going on, Chris?
I'm fucking living the dream, baby, in Reno, Nevada.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So, what's been going on? We actually have recorded only 2 weeks ago, so I think hopefully both of us will somewhat remember what's going on.
Yeah, and I was there, which was cool. And then I went from there to Cleveland. Yeah. So I went from Phoenix straight to Cleveland, and I was working on like a really big probing project, which is like pretty intense. Huge, like the project overall that I don't really have much involvement with outside of the probing is just like a total fucking nightmare. And it's being handled really interestingly, I'll say, which like did affect me negatively. And like Justin got to see that firsthand. I was hanging out with Justin a lot. Like when you guys recorded, I was in like the next room over.
Right. It was so funny. Justin said that just before we started, and I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. I was just like right there. I was working. And basically, so like and I stayed with Justin for like the week and a half or like week and 2 days or whatever that I was in Ohio. And I'd like wake up, we'd chat in the morning, and then I'd drive out to fucking Clyde, which is like an hour and 15 minutes away from him. And just like kind of crank on probing for a few days or like for like quite a few hours until they would kick me out of there. And then I'd drive back, and then Justin and I would like kind of work till like midnight, 2 a.m. or whatever. And it was like very interesting because both him and I are fucking jacked up, It was just like a really good energy going on. I was like, damn. And like now that I'm got like away, and it's kind of weird to think about that I was there like 3 days ago. It doesn't feel like that. I'm like, damn, I miss it. I want to go back there.
Him and I were talking, and he said the same thing about you. He was like, it was nice to work with somebody who's just like maniacal in their work as well.
Right. And so I'd basically and so after just like kind of I was programming a lot for like other people. And that was good. And then kind of like, well, I guess we could address it with his question or whatever. But I ended up having to like stay in Ohio for like over the weekend and like 2 extra days, which really sucked. Kind of like blew my schedule up a bunch. And which like I've been telling people, this is like my schedule right now is like fucking gnarly because of IMTS. Like typically we can be like very flexible with things, like just shifting things around, but like IMTS is IMTS, it's not fucking moving for anything. So it's been kind of like gnarly to like get everything done before and around that. Especially like today when they're like, hey, so some of the ways that you programmed parts don't work with the system. So we need to like redo that a little bit, which is fine.
No.
Yeah. And they're like, well, we didn't know it was that it was going to be this way. So here we go. And it's like, oh, all right. So one of the cool things I was doing, I can't do anymore, which was like holding the part and like kicking it sideways and like basically machining like in between the jaws, which was like pretty neat. It just doesn't work. Which is like, fine.
So what makes it not work? Is it because part of the vice system sits in there now?
Right. The way it is right now is like it can't hold it long ways, and like, like the long axis of the part needs to be like, I guess, parallel to the jaws instead of normal to the jaws, which is fine. And so like, I don't really know. I think they'll address that at some point, like for realsies. But for IMTS, like for the mission of the demo, it's totally okay. None of these parts are real or matter or anything. So it just needs to like be a part.
Right.
So
well, and it's not like you guys already don't have a million parts too that you're
correct. Running. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Tim was just out there cranking super hard, which is cool.
Yeah, it was awesome to see.
Yeah. Then what the hell else? I mean, oh yeah, and then I fucking flew from. I ended up taking like a red eye out of Cleveland on Tuesday into Idaho because flights into Reno were like crazy expensive because of Burning Man. So because I was initially going to go to California, but I just needed to like swap some things. So I ended up like flights were just dumb expensive. So I flew into Boise instead and then stayed with Jason for like 9 hours. I didn't even see him. And then because I had a car at the shop. So like, you know, like you do, you just have cars everywhere and just grabbed that and then drove to Reno.
Nice.
And I've been in Reno with the knife guy and that's been fun. And like I ended up doing like a little trade with Oracle down here to use their bandsaw and like just help them with some of like weird issues they were having with like macro stuff. Which is mostly just the way that things were written. They wanted to, when a tool was broken, kick the pallet out and then like change the tool if the tool group was set up and then just like bring a new pallet in and keep going. And the logic was just like mostly there, but like slightly off. And figuring that out was kind of like really annoying. Which was mostly it would get to a certain point and then hang on an M61. But it turned out the M61 was user-defined subprogram, not a like machine M code. And when you like run that M61 like on a FANUC control, and there might be a parameter. I think there's a parameter that like turns this off. But if you run like this M61 in the main program, it reads it. But if it reads that M61 as part of a subprogram, it doesn't read it. It doesn't like it. It doesn't like the user-defined subprogram as part of a subprogram. It wants to see it as the like G65 P9002 or whatever that it actually is.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so like it worked, but then like part of the tool breakage logic is to go back into the start program that like tells it what to do, and then they would hit that M61 and stop. And it's like, okay. So we changed that and then we got that working. And then we went to go run and the coolant wouldn't turn back on. And we're like, what the fuck is going on here? And it's like, oh, because of the tool, and it took a little bit to like figure this out. Cause there's a Matsuura has like an M395 and M394, which like turns coolant, like turns the ability to turn coolant off and on and like on, like the button doesn't even work, you know? And it's just
how
so
bizarre.
Like, it's just so like you don't accidentally turn coolant on, like when you're doing tool breakage or like moving pallets around or stuff's exposed that you don't want exposed, you know? And so that sent us down a little bit of a rabbit hole because we were like, well, okay, well, that's obviously what we need to put in there. But even though like M394 turns it off, M395 turns it back on, I'm like, there's no 394. What the fuck is going on here? And what it turned out to be was that the normal logic is you go into G103, which is their tool break macro, it checks it. It's like, oh, it's broken. And then it like turns the laser off and then alarms out. So what happens is like, if you leave the laser activated, the machine just like doesn't turn the coolant back on because it's like, oh, it's laser time, so you don't want coolant, right? And it was just a lot of like fucking like.
So it's like baked in deep in there of like, okay, anytime the laser is on, this G code is active.
Yeah, and that was kind of a weird like puzzle because it's like, well, we put it here, we put the 395 here, put it there, put it in the program itself, like, and it's just like nothing's doing it, and then it's like. Something is, and then we go into the manual and see like 395 is like this weird thing about tool break detection. And I'm like, oh, I wonder if the laser's on. And then it's like, oh, that might be it. And sure enough, like just like turn the laser off and fucking got it. But that was like an hour, you know, of just just trying like faking tool breaks and like waiting to see what happens.
So we can get into this with Justin's question, but like this was something him and I were talking about about how I think because you act like one of the boys, people forget
Right.
like what an absolute machine wizard you are.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I'm
then
way too
you get
casual.
thrown into the deep end like that, and you're just like, I got it. No worries.
Yeah, that's like it is really bonkers. Yeah, that's something that Justin and I were talking about, because like when he came with me to like work on the Saturday, and he's like, this is really intense. This was really intense. Like what you did is insane. And it's like, yeah, I guess. I mean, I was just doing what I needed to do to get the thing done.
Right.
And then
But
I
like
come on
usually
here.
we talk about like you programming or like making fixtures or whatever, and
Yeah.
not just like I'm gonna go dive into deep logic and find like the one bit that is off in your machine, and that I think is your like real secret power.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it is like the secret sauce to being like good at what we do, I guess, is just being able to like hone in on like parameters or whatever, and like it's just like the next level of the whole process. And yeah, I mean, I guess I'm so used to dealing with people that like don't know what I'm talking about that I just default to it being like very like simple, you know? So it's just like, yeah, I just did the thing and now it works. Like, yeah, you're welcome. Bye.
Right.
And then that's how it kind of comes across, like on here, like talking to Justin or whatever. And it's like, no, it's a little bit more involved than that, you know?
Yeah.
And like, it's interesting because like my customer in Pennsylvania is he had a guy he's the COO of this company, and in his former life he was like him and this dude like partnered together with like, I don't remember what the name of the company was, but like the other guy was like me, I guess. Like he's just like a total fucking G on a machine, not to like toot my own horn or anything, but like from what I understand, like people, that's like somebody who has worked with him said that we are like, he's just like 10 years older than me. So I'm assuming he's like much better than I am. And like, you can see how that has translated to how this dude that I work with now thinks about manufacturing. Cause he'll just like, the other guy would be like, oh, I'll just like, this is what we're doing. And it would just get done because he was just like fucking smashing it out, you know? And like, so when he would talk to Chris, it would just be like, yeah, this is what we did. And now we have this. And it's like, okay. So now Chris, when he's talking to us, is like, well, we just needed to do X, Y, Z. And it's like, right. But like, that's like a thing, you know?
Yeah,
it's like a
you're
whole
like,
thing.
that's 80 hours of work though.
Yeah,
that you're asking for.
It's not like impossible, and like I'm for sure down to do it and everything. It's just like doing it remotely is a little bit like, especially when that company's mill lead now is like the second shift guy. It's like the feedback loop is kind of interesting. And oh man, actually, on that note, this is like our biggest, like I put those guys into our Asana, you know? And that has been like such a wonderful experience, because they're like actually using it, and we're using it together. I've been able to like, they're like, oh, we want to do all these things. And it's like, okay, well, I need a tool list for that machine, so I can assign that to you. And then they like, when they give me back the tool list, which is like a picture of a spreadsheet, and like, they're like, well, we have these kind of holders. And it's like, okay. So, and then complete the task. And then I can go uncomplete the task and be like, yo, like, that's a great list. Like, that is cool and everything. But how many of what holders do you have? What is this fucking Seco Garflex thing you have, or Graflex or whatever it is? Like this crazy, like modular system it makes no sense why they have it on that machine. But it's like, what quantity of tools do you have for these things? So I can like, when I build the tool list for you, I actually am building it around what's there, not just like guessing, you know? And like, it's neat to see them talk to themselves internally, like, hey, where is this? This is late. Like, Chris needs this, you know? Or I guess, yeah, I mean, they call me Zap because the COO is Chris, and he's Chris Prime over there. And And like,
I
so
love it.
that's been pretty neat to experience. And then, yeah, I've just been, and then like outside of that, I've been here in Reno being kind of sad a little bit. Cause like, you know, it's just like 2 weeks away from like the death anniversary of my mom. And I was here when that happened. So it's been
Oh,
like kind of
really?
weird. Yeah. So like I was in like I mean, I'm in Carson City technically right now, but like,
Right.
so I was here like when she died, and like, so now coming back, I'm like, with like it being so close, I'm like, oh shit, I'm like depressed. Fuck.
Oh, wow.
um,
Well,
yeah.
I'm
So
glad
it's
you're going
been
to be
like,
with some friends then on the week
yeah, yeah,
because that'll
exactly.
be IMTS, right?
Right.
Aren't we 2 weeks
Yes.
out?
Yep. 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 Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah. So that'll be good. I hit up Graham today, and I'm like, hey, so I'm like, might be like sad during the setup, but like, just want to like give you a heads up that I might be sad sacking a little bit that week. He's like, oh yeah, I get it. Um, but yeah, so that's been interesting, but it's been okay.
Yeah.
It's been
Are
okay.
we going to talk about your new change in billing as well?
Ooh, yeah, 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 yeah.
If
I'm
you want
okay
to,
with.
we don't have to. I can edit it
I
out.
I do want to. I mean, I don't like. So I mean, it's because it's been fucking successful. You know,
Right.
like it's
Yeah.
been
I
pretty
just figured
good.
you might want to put the word out
Yeah.
to
I
potential other people.
Yeah, because so we started. I mean, it's not like it's like groundbreaking or anything. It's just like we started doing a retainer model, and like we've done this before, but at like much higher dollar amount, you know, which is like essentially just way too much, like too much, and it like they want too much of you, obviously. So we started this new model. Like we're at like $200 an hour right now. So we do uh like for 2,500 bucks a month, you know, you get that first 15 hours, right, which is like $167 an hour, so you get slight discount. And for people that like, because we're not just like contract programmers, people, and like we can do like you're talking about like the wizardry of the machine or whatever, and like we can help in more areas than just contract programming, like just process and like fixture design and like potentially making fixtures, and we'll fucking show up. um like it makes a lot of sense for people. And so I like had talked to one of my, and my, I got the idea from my customer because she's like, well, our IT guy is on a retainer and he does this. And I'm like, oh, and then we chatted about it and kind of like honed it in. And I think what we chatted about is like what we left it as, you know?
Hmm.
Um, and then I don't like, I kind of sat on it for a little bit, and then I ran the proposals basically through like chat GBT into like what we already had to like refine the language and like streamline it a little bit, because it was a little like verbose, you know. um and like there was definitely language that I was like missing and stuff, and we got it going. And I think like Sunday night at like midnight I shot out like 8 of these fucking things, you know. I made it like as like easy as possible to like just shoot these fuckers out. And like 9 a.m., one of the customers who I didn't think, like I had sent him a proposal like 2 weeks prior to that, that was like more of our like generic like contract programming thing, where we like ask for a certain amount of money up front to like get systems built and everything for them. And he's like, this doesn't really make sense for us. We don't really like, we want your help, but we don't really have a part for you to program. Like, so how does that work? And then, so once I got this idea for the retainer, then I shot that off to him, and he's like, oh shit, this is like exactly what, like, this is makes way more sense to us. Like, we just want to be able to like reach out and touch you essentially. And if we need you to program, we can program. But if we just like, if fucking like Kyle needs help, he can just call you or whatever. And like, it's, he's like, this is great. And like, as we were talking on the phone, he's like, oh, our, he was like, I think he's like, we subbed out some programming to somebody else. I don't know who. He's like, but he's like, I think he's going to drop the ball. And then he gets like, while we're on the phone, he's like, yep, he dropped the ball. He's like, okay, so I'm going to sign this right now. And like he did, he signed it. We invoiced him. He fucking paid. So like within 12 hours, we had like a fully paid retainer. And like, That was on Monday, and then like we kind of had some like woes over like the parts because they're in like NX, and like the uh the way that like that they did the MBD, the model based dimensioning and everything with like holes and shit was like fucking so bizarre. Like so bizarre. I've never seen anything like it where like the part doesn't have any holes on it. There's just like a separate document with like stars that tell you where the holes are, you know? And
Oh no.
it was like, what the fuck is this, dude?
Uh-uh.
It was really, but once we got past that, like, and John started cranking, like, he, like, 2 nights ago, yeah, 2 nights ago, finished programming the part. We got our second seat of Camplete, and in the morning, first time using Camplete, we like got through it. Like, we did like a 30-minute fucking like Google Meet and made sure that it was working correctly. And like we shot off fucking code, not like the cam file, like code, NC codes for this dude's UMC 500, or whatever. And they ran the part fucking first shot, nailed it, you know? And it's like,
Amazing.
yeah, let's go. And it's like, oh yeah, this is fucking it. And then I've gotten a couple more people to like sign up, and like, they're like, oh, this is a fucking good deal. Like, we like what you do for us, so might as well have access to you kind of like more consistently, you know? And like even the knife guy, I was talking to him about it, and he's like, oh yeah, sign me up right now. That makes perfect sense. He's like, it makes more sense instead of like doing like $5,000 or $10,000 chunks here and there for like whatever, is like we just do like a small monthly fee, and like if we go over, then we go over. And I've had people push back on the rollover, and like I had one guy who's like, well, I don't want it. I want unused hours to roll over. It's like, I think it's only fair that I pay for what I use. And it's like, okay, then it's just $200 an hour straight, and I want $4,000 right now for the first 20 hours. He's like, well, that's a lot. It's like, right.
You're like, that's how the math works though.
Yeah.
Like,
It's like, if you just want to pay for what you use, then we'll just do a straight agreement, and like you don't get the discount. That's like how that fucking works. The point of it is like you're giving us consistent revenue, and we're giving you a discount on those hours, which like 15 hours realistically is like fucking nothing, you know? You can eat up 15 hours, like John ate up 15 hours in like a day and a half, right? Like, right. It was pretty quick.
Yeah.
It was like, and that was like one of the 4 parts. So yeah, I mean, I'm pretty stoked. Like, this was a fucking great moment, because I was like, damn, like, why didn't I do this like 2 years ago? I was telling Justin, and he's like, and he rightfully was like, I think you were too much of a mess 2 years ago to be able to pull this off. And it's like, yeah, I was a fucking nightmare.
That's fair.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, still a nightmare, but what can you do?
That's killer though. I think that, I mean, it makes the most sense, I think, for the type of work you do for a lot of your customers.
Right. And I think I might like hard cap the amount of retainers we do at like 10 or 15 or something like that, because it could get like very out of hand very quickly, you know, if we have too many. And like banking on people like signing up and not using it, like that's just not going to fucking happen, really. Like, I mean, I'm sure, like I liked the way, because I talked to Andrew Henry earlier this week, like you did, about like 5-axis machines. And he was like, yeah, he's like, I mean, for the money, I mean, I would, yeah, sure. I'd pay that to have Obi-Wan Kenobi on my staff. Like,
right. Exactly.
Right, yeah.
I think capping it's the really smart move though. Like that's, you want to be protective of your hours. Like if you have, 300 outstanding hours in a week, you're screwed, kind of thing.
Because like when John and I were talking about it, it's like if we cap it at 10, that puts us on the hook for 150 hours, right? And so if you just like make the math simple enough, that's each of us working for 2 weeks, for 2 normal person 40-hour weeks, which is like, I don't think I work less than like 80, but I digress. Like, but still, that would be enough to basically cover the operation with us working like technically half the time, which would be good. and then we can like to either continue to like service those customers or take on other projects, like more onesie twosie stuff or whatever. And so it just like makes a lot of sense. And like, yeah, I mean, I'm pretty fucking hyped on it. Like it just feels like things are, and like with Hirsch, like it was really cool because it's like, oh, he's like, what do I got to do? It's like invoice this guy, set up a project in QuickBooks so that we can bill hours to the project, and then that like it makes it super easy to like spool up an invoice, you know. And it's like, yeah, fucking great. It's awesome.
Right. Yeah. No, that's killer. I'm stoked for you, man.
Hell yeah. So what the hell have you been up to? You had an exciting day.
I had an exciting day. We'll get to that in a second. Let's see. I think after you left, because you were here, what, a Friday, right?
I think so.
Something like that. Thursday or Friday.
Yeah.
I had a bunch of rush jobs, finished them all by the next Wednesday. And I was like kind of feeling like garbage Wednesday night after shipping a bunch of stuff. And then woke up Thursday feeling like death. And so I was sick for a couple of days. I was out of the shop for 2 days, and probably should have been 3 days, and just felt terrible. And then
because we chatted with you and you was like, damn, this guy sounds like shit.
Yeah that was as I was starting to feel better too. But then had a pretty productive week this week, and then today went to Yamazin in Phoenix to run some code on a U500, which was a ton of fun.
Placed the PO, fucking said, it's like, I brought the trailer, yet. just load it up, dude.
Nothing yet, just looking. Well, let's get into some questions. We can get into U500 stuff, but first up, we went over this last time, but I think it bears repeating. Al Watmo asked tips for getting the most out of IMTS, and James Mayette asked IMTS schedule. What did we agree on last time? Don't pay for it. Get Machine Tool Builder to pay for your ticket. It's fairly cheap for them. It's much more expensive for you.
Right. Good shoes and make a plan. Right. Which is like, I mean, I guess I also like to just smash through the whole thing day one, you know, and just like, and then just see everything and then go about it more systematic day two. Like, or however many days you're there. If you're only there for a day, then it's kind of like rough, you know?
Yeah.
You're just kind of
just like get there as early as you can and bang through it, I guess, you know?
Right. And that's where the exhibitor batch comes in, baby. If you're only there for a day, because then you can get there really early.
Right. I think that's it. Like, I would make a plan, definitely comfortable shoes. If you're packing a backpack, pack light, because it is a lot of walking. I have brought my laptop every year, and I don't think I've used it once at the show.
Right.
This year I might, because we're going to be recording, and so I might record straight to my laptop in addition to a card. But every other year I've regretted it about halfway through the day. I'm just like, this is hell. Like, why did I bring I've got a big 16-inch laptop that's heavy as hell, and I'm like, this sucks. You know?
Yeah. What I was doing, like the last one, is I brought that stuff, but I would just like, I was setting it. What was my base camp? Trinity was my base camp last time. So I would set it down there and then just walk around. And if I needed it, I would go back to get it. Which is like, but travel light, like drink lots of water, eat some food. Otherwise you will get fucking woozy because you will be walking a lot. And I guess like another tip is like, since Al's asking, you know, like, brush up on your cornhole skills. get ready for the tournament.
Yeah. The other thing I would say too is if you drink, pace yourself. Like, there are a lot of booths usually that have a lot of beer, and like,
right.
I can't remember if it was last time or the time before. There was one day where it was towards the end of our trip, and I was just like, screw it, and ended up drinking way too much, and was just like, this was stupid, you know? Like, I was just completely useless.
Yeah, the old drinking and walking. Good combo.
Yeah, exactly. And then schedule wise, I put the link there, and I'll put it in the link for the show. Pete created a IMTS calendar of all of the, after hours things and meetups and the Kern within tolerance meetups on there. I think AJ and Harrison's meetup is on there, all the things, and it's imts.chatter.dev. I'll also throw it in the show notes. Great way to keep up on events. And then if you know of events, you can submit them and he'll throw them in there as well.
Right. Which is dope. And I think he meant like our schedule, like what we're doing probably.
Oh man, I don't know.
Which like I'm working the booth for a lot of it, I think, or a decent amount of it. We're recording like every day, right?
Yeah, at least something.
Yeah. And then I like personally like it's not like the Frasier dinner. I don't know. It's like Swiss manufacturing, but like Swiss as in the country, not Swiss as in like the machine type dinner or whatever on Tuesday that we're going to.
Yeah, I've got that. I probably will end up, it sounds like at least one of my customers will be there. So I'll probably take them out to dinner one of the nights.
Nice.
Yeah, I know AJ and Harrison's meetup is on Monday at 2 at Tormach, I think.
Yeah,
with Intolerance. Right. Kern one's Wednesday at 3 at the Kern booth.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say I signed up to play cornhole on either Monday or Tuesday with Brad, but I don't remember.
Nice.
And then, yeah, I don't know. I've got a lot of things to look at. Like, I think I've got 10 vendors in my IMTS app that I saved.
Hell yeah.
I think that's a fairly good way to pre-plan your trip. Like, it's not the best app by any means, but it is the app for the show, and you can search for a vendor and then save them to your planner.
That's tight. Yeah, that is a good one. Like, man, you think about like, it'd be cool if it was like really, really good, and it's like, oh, if these are the 10 guys, you should map it out like this. Like, this is your most efficient route to hitting all 10 of these.
Yeah.
Which would be kind of cool.
It at least does divide them up by hall. So you can be like, okay, I need to go to the West Hall. And then it's like, here's the ones you saved from the West Hall. And you're like, sweet.
Right, cool. Nice. Yeah. That's a step in the right direction. Yeah. And probably like way easier to do than what I just talked about.
I mean, it would be cool if you could say like, hey, I need to hit these 8 today. What's the, how do I avoid walking even more back and forth to 2 different halls?
And it's like, oh, you could take this shuttle. And it's like, oh, hell yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The shuttles are a hack from everything I've heard. Like I think Andrew Henry has talked about them on his podcast a couple times with Jay.
Yeah.
That like he takes those from hall to hall sometimes.
Yeah. Like a little breather, go outside, like feel that fresh Chicago air.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
All right. We got a ton of U500 questions because I went there today. So I will start blasting through them. Most of them are from the Patreon. Really appreciate all of the interaction, guys. I think this is the most Patreon comments or questions we've got yet, which is awesome.
Right.
So David Ron asks, spill the tea on the U500. How does the Brother control handle 5-axis? Would you put it up against a Fanic as a 5-axis control, or does the in-house development and integration give it an edge? Joe was asking about the practicality of its work envelope. And do I have any doubts about running longer gauge tool holders in a BT30 spindle and how I like the control? And then from Instagram, LHM Engineering asked, is it really 2/3 the machine of a C250? If space and power were no constraint, would I just save up a little extra and get another one? And then Justin from PDX CNC was also asking C250 versus U500. So I'll just break it down. And we took a fair bit of video. I'll probably make a little couple-minute video of just making the part and all that stuff. But I'm trying to think of where to start. Machine itself felt pretty dang rigid. I mean, it is a S500 with a T200 bolted on both ends pretty much.
Right.
Like, so you lose a little bit of rigidity over a 3-axis Speedio, but not much.
Yeah.
The motion was really smooth. Like we used, it's very strange. So like usually the high speed codes are M298 for Brothers, and then you give them like L1 through 6, and they mean different things. Okay. It is not 1 through 6 meaning like better as you go up. Like I can't remember one of them means standard, one of them is rough, and then like I think 3 through 6 get incrementally more accurate and smooth. But you use the B series of high-speed codes, and they're the only ones allowed in tool center point control on the brother control.
Yeah.
So it's a totally different there. Handled code very well, is very picky about what codes can be applied when you're applying tool center point control, and also when you're canceling it. Yeah. So for example, we spent a long time diagnosing, like we kept getting this error over and over, and it was a weird like tool center point. It was like TCP command error or something like that.
Yeah. And I talked to Devin about this a lot.
Mm-hmm. And so I can't remember if it was in the description of the alarm or the description in the manual somehow related to the alarm, but it said something about G and M code priority. Yeah. And I looked through the G100 line that it was applying it, and I was like, oh, why is the D word in there? Like the diameter offset. Yeah. And so first we had tried like, throwing the G43.3 or 4 on the next line down, but then it was getting weird Z-axis over travels because it would
it's trying
travel
to
in XY.
And and like
it would travel like towards us in XY, and then try to apply TCP and try to like move through the trunnion basically, and was like, oh, I can't do that. Yeah. But then the second I pulled the D word out of there, boom, worked flawlessly. I was like, cool. All right. So that's an easy one. And then canceling it, the stock Autodesk post does like a G91, G28, Z0, and then cancels it with a G49. Yeah. We found that you had to cancel it before you started doing that Z move with a G43, just a normal one.
Right. Yeah.
And then I had to replace the G91 with a G100 tool change. And that was like, because the brothers still, even on the D0, have this weird thing where if you send them home with G28 and then you try to do a tool change, it like freaks out and doesn't like it. It sees it as an over travel somehow. Speaking to like David Ron's thing, it kind of seems like that the in-house development, it seems like the control for 5-axis stuff is essentially like a FANUC clone. That's just like not quite fully baked yet. They're only. It almost feels like they just gave it too many options, because there's a lot of user parameters that affect the behavior. And it almost feels like they were like, all right, we don't want anybody complaining that they can't run code on this, so let's give them all of the options to run code. Like even stuff on TCP, you can have the coordinates either translate with the rotation or not translate. And it's like, I don't know when you would want it to not translate. I've never seen anybody program TCP like that. Not that it doesn't exist, but like, why would you have it? So, but like as far as smoothness, and I've never done full 5 on a FANUC, but as far as like full 4 that I've done, it seemed much smoother, and to be able to eat more code much better.
Yeah, I would imagine that's like points for brothers, that they're like, well, this is our full 5 package. So there's no like, oh, you can get like full 5, 1, 2, or 3, and like that's varying degrees of like functions and like look ahead and smoothness settings. It's probably like, well, this is what it is, like you get all of what we have to offer. Right now.
Yeah, I think all of their full 5 machines automatically come with submicron, and automatically come with like 1,000 or 1,200 lines of look ahead, something like that.
And like I've said this on the podcast before. It's like one of the things I appreciate about how Selway imports Matsuras, is that like they don't give you the option, but like it is bananas to me that in this day and age that you would still have an option to not have that stuff and do full 5 and then be like, oh, this machine sucks. It's like, no, you're cheap. And the builder fucked you. So that's like really cool that they do that. It seems like between like what you had going on there, like made a nice part.
Didn't take that much screwing around. Like the machine sim made machining on the, away from me side not all that scary.
Right.
It was kind of, maybe I got the wrong impression, but to me, it was like, oh man, this is what Chris goes through all the time. Like he plans out something, goes to a machine he's never touched, and then has to like figure it all out on the fly. And like, it was a lot of fun, but it was also
stressful.
It was stressful, and just like thinking through the night before, like all of the things I had to bring with me. It was like, oh, I should bring extra stock because just in case. And like, oh, I should bring an extra finishing ball because like that might break. And you know, I have to have extra bolts just in case, like I need them, or bring all my torque wrenches for the vise and the Lang 0 point, and like, thank goodness I brought an indicator, because the first thing he said was like, you have an indicator, right, to indicate that in an odd center. And I was like, yeah, I remembered that, and a holder for it. He's like, okay, good, because I don't have mine here yet. And I'm like, all right, that's.
Is it like a brand new office or something?
They moved in only a couple months ago, and I think Scott came in for us. Scott's the apps guy in Phoenix now.
Okay.
And I think he just didn't have his indicator with him.
Sure.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
But
yeah,
big props to them. Like I could tell, I don't think this is a normal thing. I think that it was only because Jonah and Scott knew we had such history with Brother and now have experience in 5-axis that they were like, all right, they're checking as many boxes as they possibly can without having run a U500.
Yeah. I think like my entire time at Methods, we like never did something like that, you know, maybe like once.
Right.
But it's pretty uncommon.
And it was super cool. Like Scott was there to help me and like help me troubleshoot code and stuff. But at no point did they were like, oh, we've got to do, we got to do this. Like they were there to hold my hand when I needed it. And it was perfect. It worked fantastic. Yeah.
It's a super smart way for them to like sell the machine, even though like, I mean, and just like, and also like kind of like work through like from a training aspect of it is just like let you work through it and see what happens and just be there to like catch you if you fall. It's awesome.
I mean, Scott was like right there, like ready. Yeah. I never really let go of the feed hold button, but like he was right there to watch every button I was pressing and all of that stuff and making sure that I was going to succeed, which was fantastic.
Yeah. Sick customer experience. It seemed like they like
fantastic.
With like some of the weird woes you've had like with them, kind of like this was like a step in the right direction.
Yeah. This was a clear win. To Joe's question, the work envelope is for the machine that size. I'm really not that unhappy with it. I mean, it's 500 millimeters of travel in X. The Z is, you need longer tool holders, to the second part of his question. Like I think all of our standard tools, if we buy one, are going to be 120 millimeter, which we have, I don't know, 5 or 6 120 millimeter PG-15s already, and we use them all the time, roughing, finishing, all that stuff, and they're fine in the Brothers.
Yeah.
The Brothers are definitely lighter duty machines, but they're by no means weak. Like they're fairly rigid for what they are, and they're fairly well optimized. And the nice thing about having this machine built on an S500 chassis is that like that's, years and years of optimization on that casting.
Right. Makes perfect sense that that would kind of rip. What's the max like workpiece diameter you can have on that thing? I'm like trying to find it. I don't see.
Give me a second. I think I want to say it's nearly 500 millimeters. It's not that tall, but it is fairly. Let's see.
Yeah, there's got to be. Here we go. Come on, baby. It says work table, work area size, 10.2 inches.
That sounds right. Sure.
That's pretty big. I mean, like, that's a really... I mean, this thing's basically...
No, maximum diameter is 19.7. It is 500 millimeters.
That's fucking huge, dude. Yeah, that's
the
massive.
Max height of the part, if you like bolted it directly to the table, is 10.6.
Oh, dude.
But the max diameter is 19.7.
Yeah, you would be doing like the biggest part you'd ever done. Like, not ever done, but like their biggest 5-axis part you could definitely do in there,
Right. Well, and that's the thing is, I've thought, like, I'm sure they're going to come out with a XD2 version eventually that has
Right.
more Z and all that stuff, because that's what they've done with the M300 and the M200.
Right.
But realistically, so the most amazing thing about having the model and being able to sim it is I just went back through and through nearly every 5-axis part that I've put on the Hermla. I just ported it over to the U500 template, dropped in Brother Tools, and like the only thing I've had issues with is my normal, I think there's 75 millimeter PG 15s, but the second I swapped them to 120 millimeters, they no more over travels in the Z negative.
Hell yeah. Yeah. It's, I mean, like, seems like kind of a no-brainer, you know? It seems like you could still do all the stuff you're doing on your, you have S700s, right? Yeah, so like you couldn't quite do as big if you got rid of one of those, but like totally fine. I doubt you're using like 100% of that table in X anyway.
No, I mean, we've optimized for smaller parts. Like most of our stuff is, I don't know, a 5-inch cube or smaller, or a 4-inch cube or smaller.
Right. Like I think on the last
one, we're not getting rid of the
the
Hermla either. Like, we have another big 5-axis to run parts on. This is just a very well-priced machine that gives us a lot of capability. And like, to Ledyard's question about, is it 2/3 the machine? I don't see a sub $200,000 U500 as even 2/3 the price of another C250, because the C250 is $330 or whatever. Yeah. But then I need so many more HSK holders. I can't use my BT30 holders with it. It takes up so much more space. Yeah. And really, I don't want to buy another C250 without automation. So
that 330 is more like 500-600. Like
Well, and then to tool it up, like if I bought a fully automated HS Flex C250, it's 600 or whatever, plus another 100 in work holding and tools. Maybe easy. If not even more. Like that's a lot.
You could easily spend $200,000 on fixturing and tooling for that machine. No big deal. So I don't know. Like it is like such a no-brainer, especially in your situation where you're trying to bring Brad up to 5-axis. So like getting a machine that has a control that he's familiar with, and like he was there with you the whole time today, and like it will be much easier for him to like grasp. Like not that he wouldn't be able to grasp the Heidenhain, but in the situation that you guys are in where you're just like fucking cranking so hard, it's not like you'd be like, oh well, here Brad, just fuck around on this for a while instead of me just like knocking it out. So it's it makes perfect sense.
There are many more positives. Like, did I think about another C250? Yes. That C250 is fantastic. Like, I sent you that picture the other day of like, I cut a part in 2 orientations with 2 separate tools. Right. First try, 0 comp, and it was 4 microns nuts. Over.
Yeah. Right. It's like, insane.
It's amazing.
I mean, you should have thrown the part away because it's 4 microns over, but like, I mean, it's pretty good. I mean, it's really good. But and then like there's a whole like, in your situation with like power and everything, you basically like are 1-to-1 with power. I imagine maybe the U500 uses a little bit more because it has the extra axes, but
I don't think it does. I don't think it does. Yeah. So at least as far as I know, I haven't dug into the specs, but even if it's a little bit more, like it'll still run on the same breaker realistically. Right. It's for what we need, which is just more 5-axis capacity for some of these. Like most of what we do is like small aluminum and stainless steel parts, and I have no doubt that this thing will do those no problem. Yeah,
absolutely. Especially like when you said, I think it was on our last episode that you said like you haven't even used the 96 vice on the C250 yet. Oh yeah, once. Right.
7 months.
Yeah, so like there's like almost no limitation, and like the other aspect of it is like you don't really like, you're not pushing super hard, you
No.
know? Like
No, not at all.
like your goal, like I was actually talking to that kid, that guy Stone or whatever today, and he's like, would you interpolate, like, because he's, you know, having troubles with the holes or whatever. He's like, would you interpolate the holes or would you drill them? And it's like, well, I'd probably drill them, but like if you ask Dylan, he'd probably just interpolate them. But like we have different goals, you know, like
I'd make
Dylan
one
cares,
and
yeah,
you'd make 2,000, you know?
right. It's like where I'm like more concerned about cycle time and you just don't give a fuck because like you're like, right, you're making one of them and then you're probably never going to see it. Or if you see it again, you're getting like the exact same amount of money for that part again,
Well,
you know?
and realistically, because we're time limited in my shop versus machine or anything limited, I love long cycle times. Like very often I'll bump stuff down because it's like, great, now I've got 15 minutes of walk away time instead of 8.5. Like
it is. Yeah. It's such like a glorious thing. And the other aspect of it is like, you just need to know it's going to, like, you're much better off having it take, I mean, just to throw a number out, like 2 hours instead of 1 and not even question if it's going to be good, you know?
Right. Yeah. We'll get to that a little bit later with Leif's question, but yeah, like it's, for us, it is all about how little do I screw with a part and just be able to ship it.
Yeah. It's like, how fast can I get the part onto the machine and like, basically like first piece yield, first pass yield, first piece yield, you know?
Yeah.
Like just like nailing it first shot.
Yeah. And then as far as like the Brother versus the C250, I mean, I didn't make any tight tolerance parts in it. I can't speak to that. As far as like 5-axis motion and stuff, it looked fantastic. And the part came out great and looked like there was some chip recutting because I think that their coolant was a little low percentage and I didn't have it pointed perfectly for that tool.
Yeah.
But besides that, like, man, I was actually very impressed. Like both Brad and I walked out of there like, all right, so, you know, let's get an invoice rolling and see what it costs. Like, you know, like give me a real quote kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, totally unrelated. We have an S700 for sale. So if you guys want an S700 with a 4th axis, and I'll even throw on the trunnion table with it. But we're selling our S700.
Oh, damn. With the 4th.
Yeah, we might as well. I mean, we're going to replace it with a 5-axis, one way or the other. Like no matter what goes there, it will be another 5-axis.
Yeah.
Because like it's crazy. We were talking about it on the way up today. We have gone from not having a 5-axis to, I want to say, of the 10 jobs we have in progress right now, 7 or 8 of them are 5-axis parts.
Right.
It's like, cool. We need capacity right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like even, it is like one of those things that you don't realize it's like how good could it be, you know, until you've like fully experienced it. You're like, it's like, well, I mean, I can do the setups. The setups aren't hard. And it's kind of that thing. It's like work smarter, not harder. You know, it's not like you can't do the setups. It's just that being able to do a part in like one operation or even like 2 instead of 7, you know, is like pretty fucking sick.
Yeah. Well, like Brad noticed today, we've not stopped, but we use the 4th axis trunnion shelf a lot less now because very often parts that went on that still needed 2 or more ops afterwards. And it's like, well, just throw it on the C250, call it a day. It'll be done, you know? So
question for you, for the people, what you said, you'll throw the trunnion shelf on there with or without the vise?
Without the vise, but I'll give them the Lang plate that's built into it.
Dang, baller deal.
So that machine has the homebrew TSC full light kit. We're going to keep the mist collector probably and put that on the U if we get it or whatever is next.
Yeah.
Let's see what
give the mist collector away. Get one of those Edge Vortex. Those things rip, dude.
I like parity. I've got 3 of the Mistaways. I can buy filters for them all.
Yeah, but the Hermla doesn't have one, so it's out the window.
Oh man, I wish I had the one that's on the Hermla on all machines. It like actively drains back into the machine every now and again once it gets full. and
Yeah,
it'll
yeah.
drain back like a gallon and a half every
Yeah.
20 minutes or
I
something.
think you showed me that when I was there. It's just like all of a sudden there's just a waterfall of coolant
Yeah.
in the machine. You're like, oh, that's
it's
cool.
insane.
Yeah.
Let's see. So it's a big plus, high torque, 10K spindle, has TSC, full. That one has the OMP 400 Renishaw probe and the Bloom Z Nano table probe. I don't think I'm missing anything. I mean, it's just got everything pretty much that like you can buy for that
It's
machine.
a great machine.
So,
I mean, it's a fucking dope machine.
yeah, it has the rotary fixture offset card in it. We've never used it, but it's in there and it's turned on too. So like, if you wanted to figure that out too, it's like G54.2, I think it is, or something like that. Devin has it all worked out. So
fuck yeah.
Yeah, reach out to us. I want to say it has like 1,600 cycle on time too, or something like that.
That's not that bad.
I took a picture of it the other day for someone. It is 1,930 operation hours.
Oh, so like one whole year, basically.
Yeah, 6,000 on hours, but 1,900 cycle on hours. So
yeah. Hey, that's that prototype. That's that prototype shop life right there, baby.
Yep. Yeah, it's on every day. It might not be running every day, but it's on every day.
There was a question about that, wasn't there? About like capacity or something?
Yeah. Let me wrap up the U stuff.
Sure.
Well, I guess I don't really have anything else to say. Like the U is fantastic for what it is. I think it's a fantastic machine. Like I don't know of any other machine that's around 190, 200 grand that is as capable. And as far as like accuracy wise, we'll see. Like there's a full Bloom software pack that is one of the options that we're buying. That's, I think it's called Kinematics Perfect or something like that. And it's the full kinematic suite. So you can run that. If it's anything like our other machines, when it's warm, it's going to be great. Like on our trunnion shelf, when the machine is warm and I've cut like a calibration block and, made all my adjustments, we can pretty regularly hold 10 or 15 microns across two opposing 90s or like a whole location or something. It's awesome. Super accurate.
That's awesome. Fuck yeah.
Oh, and then to Matt's question, Matt Blackwell from the Patreon asked, do I wish I had gotten into 5-axis sooner and what made it feel like it was time to buy the C250? Yeah, I wish I had gotten into it sooner. It was fantastic. We started seeing a ton of parts that were just multi-op like that. That's really what it came down to. Is we had known for a while that 5-axis was on the table for us. Parts just started getting more and more complex, and it was time. Like we just had to make that leap. And man, I'm so glad we did. It is a game changer. And I know how cliche that sounds. I know when I heard people say that when I didn't have one, I was like, yeah. All right. But how good can it actually be? And like you said, it's like, man, it's really good.
Yeah. like Devin, I was talking to Devin about it. He's like, oh, I see how this is a force multiplier. It just becomes so much more productive. It's just like productivity central. It's like really, it's hard to like quantify it sometimes. Cause like when you're talking about operations and like combining ops and whatever else, it's like, it's not just like, well, if I take all this cycle from this and move it into that, it's like, well, now I don't have to make jaws or whatever for all these other things. And I mean, and also in your situation, it was hard for you to get into 5-axis sooner because like you were so space limited and power limited. It would have been like,
well, that's the thing is there wasn't a U500 when I was looking. Like I would have loved to buy a U instead of the F600, but that it didn't exist,
Yeah. And I mean, serendipity struck, right? Where fucking, or, Kismet or whatever. Is that your buddy just so happened to like buy one and like not really like it or whatever. Or not like, he liked the machine. He just didn't like owning a shop or whatever. And his old company like gave him a smoking deal to like come back, and you were able to like get on that thing for like nothing. I mean, not nothing, but like you got a fucking great ass deal.
But I got a great deal
machine.
And it worked out. And
yeah,
it was one of those things where just not only do we know it should be the right time, but then everything was telling us, we had a customer tell us like, what can we do to be more of a priority? You know, how do we get more
Right.
capacity from you? And it was like,
When are you going to buy a 5-axis, you dumb bitch, so we can give you more work?
right. Yeah, exactly. So I don't know that it wasn't like a hard thing of like a customer was like, hey, we have this part for you to make. It was, you know, multiple customers saying you need to get a 5-axis because we have a ton of work for it. And other customers saying like, we just need more capacity. And it's just such a game changer in like you front load a lot of your programming. It's similar to, I heard someone say once, I think it was one of my teachers in school, that like a manual machinist has the stress through the entire process because they're actively turning the handles. And then a CNC operator or CNC programmer has all of that stress condensed into the first piece run of that. Yep. And I would say that like the 5-axis programmer has all of the ops now compressed into that one proving out cycle. But like when you're done, you're done. Like you tab off a part and you like go sand it, or you throw it in a vise in the Speedio and it takes off the backside, and you're like, that part would have taken me 2 or 3 days and it was done today. Yeah. Like, how awesome is that?
Yeah. And you just wiped your forehead because you were sweating just thinking about it.
Yeah. Yeah. But like with things like Machine Sim and Fusion, it has gotten so much easier. Like I would not have felt comfortable going to this machine today and running code unproven without it. And like the fact that I had simulated it 15 times while making a million changes to it to like reduce cycle time and make it a little easier, it was just fantastic.
Hell yeah.
Justin's other question, let's talk about kinematic calibration. How often do you run it? How automated can it be? Should it just become part of the warm-up routine? And can you run it too often?
So in my, like, I mean, the cop-out answer is like, run it as much as you need, you know, like I've ran it as much as like every single day, depending on what I was doing. Like when I was doing these like little Hostoloy parts, when we're in a non-climate controlled shop in California, trying to hold like a 0 true position, you know, I would run it as part of the warm-up. It was like the end of the warm-up cycle was. So I'd run like a 45-minute warm-up cycle, and then we'd do the calibration, like the axis set to find center, and then start making parts like right after that. And we were hitting like 5/6 true position, you know,
nice, like
pretty consistently, which is like, it's like not 0, but it's like pretty good. And like that's on a robo drill. But like most people aren't doing that. So it's like, run it, you know, as needed, so to speak. Like, it's kind of a weird one because it's like, are you seeing weird shit in your parts? Like, and is it consistent, or is it just in this one part? Because if it's just in the one part, it might just be how you're cutting, you know? But if you're like seeing like, well, like whenever I cut like flat and then flat, it seems kind of wonky, or I'm getting like weird blending issues or whatever, then it's like, maybe it's time to fire it up. I think it can be like super automated, you know, like on Haverleys or whatever. We typically will try and get somebody to make like a pallet that just holds the ball. So, and then like that, the position of the ball is known. So you can just like cycle, like you could attach the program to the pallet in the Haverley, cycle it in, and like just like kind of like schedule it as needed, and then it just like, you know, cycles in, runs the program, and away you go. I mean, can you run it too much? Like, I think you can possibly trust it too much, you know? Like I do like trust but verify is like, it is good to run it, but you should probably have some kind of calibration part like you were talking about with the trunnion, just to make sure that when it changes values that it like, I didn't hit it didn't hit the stem of the ball or something, and now it thinks that the center is way off and I fucked it up. But in general, like, I don't think you can run it too much.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Unless you, I mean, I guess if you had a this is like a stack on stack of bad things, but like if you had
Right.
a uncomped machine, like something that had no thermal comp, and you were running it over and over and over as the machine cooled, like sure you could maybe induce some error for when you were cutting warm.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. You could do some like, yeah, that is a good point. Is like I mean, if you're running it like every hour on the hour or something and like just for funsies, I could see, yeah, you might be able to like do it too much. That is like, I guess like that is a weird way of thinking, but it is like problematic, I suppose, when you're like, well, I would never do that. So nobody, like, why would somebody do something totally asinine? But of course, somebody is out there going to be like, well, if the machine sits for too long, then I run it again. And
Right.
it's like, did you warm up the machine? Did you warm up the machine? It's like, no, I just run the caliber. I just run it. And then it keeps fucking up. It's like, oh my God.
Yeah. So like I run it, I try to run it once a week. I run it at least every other week. Right now mine is not automated. Ethan ran out of time to automate it when he was here. That was on me to do it. I just haven't had time yet.
Yeah.
But I probably would never do it as part of a warm up routine, just because it would mean it's just like a lot of weight to pull off of the table every single day.
Right.
Or I guess I could do it when I went home, pull the riser and the link vise off and then put my calibration palette and have it ready for the next day or something. But
yeah,
so far I haven't seen a need to do that. The machine's already pretty damn accurate. So
yeah, absolutely. Thing's a beast.
It's fantastic. I love that machine. Let's jump onto Johannes's question. This is a follow-up from last week. He says, define macro. To me, when I say that I program with macros, I mean that I hand edit the code to have if-then statements that are set from variables at the top of the program and the control toggles through them. But some people talk about macros as if it's a whole sub-program deal, as in with probing. I was taught to call those probing subroutines, basically trying to figure out if I'm speaking correctly and what people are meaning.
A big question, but the answer is like it's all correct for the most part. Like,
yeah, it's all macros.
It's all macros. It's macros all the way down. Like, it's if you do the if then statements, that's macros. Like, just changing. Like, I mean, you don't even need if then statements. You could do it with like height offsets. Like very often, like Matsuras will have you do like H pound 517. And they grab the height offset in the tool change macro, just so that like if you like it basically grabs the value of what's in the spindle, so that if you just start going, it doesn't need to do anything wonky. It makes sure that there's always like a value there, in case it like you get zeroed out for whatever reason and stuff like that. So it can be as simple as like pound 100 equals 54, and then your work offset's G pound 100, and you can very quickly change from like one to the next to the next. Or it could be as complicated as like the like very like high level nested programs that go all the way down, which is like I kind of just did that with the stuff in Ohio where I needed like I wanted a common alarm. Like for whatever reason, these macros that were on the machine didn't have like the common alarm program, so all the alarms were like hard coded previously, and I didn't want to do that. So, I like made that, and then I referenced that in a bunch of programs. So like I didn't have to hard code anything. And if I needed to add them, they were there. And I wanted more flags with the protected move. So my programs like weren't massive. So I just like made a flag program. So it'd be like protected move into the flag program, into the alarm program if it hit something it didn't need to hit and stuff. And like it's just boom, boom, boom. But like you could handle all that without jumping into programs. You could just have one gigantic program. I just don't fucking like that,
Right. So I looked up before we started, and the definition of just macro It says in computer programming, a macro is a rule or pattern that specifies how a certain input should be mapped to a replacement output. So basically, at any point, if you are telling the control, take this input and change it to this output, it's a macro. And like,
Right.
yes, those can be called probing sub-programs, but like probing sub-programs are made up of macros. That's all it is. Like you look into them and they're just a million if-then statements and writing, various values to certain registers.
Yeah. And if go tos, Justin's favorite. He loves it.
Well, yeah, because brother doesn't have if then. They have if go to. So
yeah, it sucks. It's kind of. I think they have if then on the D.
Do they?
Yeah, I believe.
Sweet.
Yeah, they added that. I was fucking around with it on Easton's control. That's one awesome. Of like the weirdest things about brother is like they're like speed running, like Fanix kind of stuff, and like just like incrementing on it like so fast. But you're like, oh, this machine is it's only 5 years old. Surely it has this functionality. Nope.
Yeah. Like, well, the D0 is the first brother control with multi-line MDI.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you had to just overwrite it.
Yeah, which is nuts. But like, hey, I mean, like, it makes sense. Like, you probably shouldn't be doing stuff in MDI, and like, brother does make it very easy to like just spool up a new program and just make a new program and like write it in there. Why are we doing it in MDI?
Yeah, but also it's nice to have.
yeah.
All right, let's jump back to Justin's other question. He says, Zap, after having watched you smash through some pretty sticky macro-related problems on the Tsugami, I'd like to hear how you think about decomposing the issue in those moments. Do you focus on the immediate next problem, break things down? Do you even have a process, or is it more like Zap smash?
Right. And that last part is interesting because like when we were doing this, I was like, I'm just like brute forcing my way through this, and he's like, it's a little bit like you say that, but it's like there's like a very deliberate thought process to what you're doing there. So like to like break down what happened is I had to troubleshoot. It took me like 3 days or so to like troubleshoot the like base macros and why they weren't fucking doing the right thing. And it's just a lot of like wonky ass math for they're like bespoke Renishaw macros for Tsugami, and they're like underdeveloped. They just like don't really work that well. I mean, they work pretty well, but like the manual is very poor. There's a lot of like underlying math happening that doesn't really make a lot of sense in what like is considered diameter mode and radius mode, and like some of the values were like, oh, this is a 2 and a 1 and this is a 2 and a 2 and it's controlled by this other thing. So got that going, like figured that whole thing out, got the probing macros all dialed in for one of the machines, and then like showed them and they were like, yeah, this is good. And I was like, but that actually wasn't. The people that they had sent me there with like didn't know what I needed to do. So that's a whole other thing. But I moved on to the other two machines, which were the TMAs, and I go to one, I start working on one, and like the probe doesn't turn on. I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. Like it has power or whatever. So I go to the other one to like see if it was the same, and that one doesn't have power. And this was on Friday. This was supposed to be my last day there. And I was like, okay, so troubleshoot, like that was like basically the rest of Friday was just troubleshooting the power to the receiver. And it ended up being like the wire died, like the 0-volt wire was dead for some reason. So luckily this like whole cell was like at an integrator. So they just like had the exact right wire, and we got that going. That was Friday. And then so Saturday, it's like, all right, then they kicked me out, and it's like Saturday, I'll come back, I'll repair these things because it doesn't seem like they're turning on. And I'll talk to Patrick Murphy or whatever, he'll help me out. So I'm talking to him, and he's like, so you see that light? That means that there's already something paired. And it's like, all right. So somehow the fucking probes got swapped and they were in the wrong TMA. So that's like, all right, easy enough. Like, here we go. We got that going. And then get to a point where it's like, all right, let's calibrate. And the first thing, like, the skip signal doesn't work at all. Like the probe turns on and it's seeing it, but like it just fucking blasts past the skip signal. And it's like, why? And like, so we see what it's looking at and it's like, oh my God, so what is going on here? And I'm like looking, and it's got a bloom laser on it. And like the probe had been calibrated at one point because I could see some calibration data in there, but we had to change the stylus. So that wasn't going to fly. And it's like kind of like diving into all the macros of it all to see like what the fuck is, like, I can see it's turning on. I can see that the laser is doing this and the spindle probe is doing that. And kind of like honed it down to, okay, like there is it's what parameters is, like 6200 bit 5 is a multi-probe skip select or something like that, and it was set to a 0 inside of the probing macro. And so like we changed it to a 1 and that made it work. And so like my conclusion there, and this is like one of the things where Justin was like, I don't know how you got to this, is like essentially what happened was that the probe laser, the Renishaw probe was installed and calibrated prior to the Bloom Xenon, the Bloom laser being installed. And so when that was installed, because they used the same skip signal wire, that fucked up whatever was in there. And so now it didn't work anymore. So it fucking blew it up. So we had to like go through that whole process. And that was just like a lot of fucking work, I mean, it doesn't like sound like a lot, but it was a lot. Like, I don't know, to like, just like kind of hone in on like, oh, it's probably this exact parameter. And it turned out to be that exact parameter. And then going through like calibrating the probe and like, so is there a process? Like kind of, I mean, you just
it sounds like you do just kind of like take it as it comes. Like, all right,
yeah,
I want to do this. What's stopping me? This. Right. Okay, fix that. What's next? Because
to a certain extent, it's like, I don't know what I don't know in the moment of like what could be wrong. But then you just kind of like take a step back and it's like, okay, the skip signal's not working. What could that be? Like, and then you go into like the status page of the control and like you turn the probe on and then you touch the probe and it's like, okay, so the machine is seeing that the probe, that when I touch this, it is activating and like it works. But for some reason, like it's not getting the signal, or it's not looking at the right signal when I do this. So it's probably looking at the laser, but the laser's not on right now. So it doesn't like do anything. So what is preventing me from seeing the right skip signal in this moment? And then it's like, well, there's these parameters that have to do with like the skip signal and multi-probe, or like multiple skip signals and things like that, especially multiple high-speed skip signals. So like kind of like process of elimination, you just get to like, it's probably this one thing that's a 0 currently needs to be a 1. And so we just do that and then give it a shot. And that's the one where like in MDI you go, like G31, like G31, like W of 5, F of 10. So it just like moves in 5 inches and like you touch it and hope it stops. And it stopped. And then we were like there and good to go.
That's killer. But yeah, I'm glad they had you, because that does sound like something that like they would call out a service tech for, and they'd pay them for a week or something.
Well, that was the fucking thing, dude. Like on Friday when they're like, well, it doesn't have power, so we'll get a service tech out here. And it's like, he's not going to be here till like Monday afternoon. I can't fucking wait around all week, And so I just like, I know who installed the probe. So I just fucking called him and I'm like, yo, this isn't working. Like, what is going on? And he's like, well, check this, check that. And it's like, well, it doesn't have power, so we have to figure that out. And it's like, okay. So I'm like checking stuff, and they had a controls guy there, and so I was like, hey, can you like just like make sure I'm seeing this right and like understanding this correctly, that like when I put the leads for the multimeter here, I have it. And when I put it here on this side, on the machine side, I have the power. But when I go to the terminal block, I don't have power. So it seems like it's the wire. And we tried the crimp too, like cut the wire, restripped it, crimped it again, and put it back, and it didn't work. And it's like, can we just like change the fucking wire? Like,
Right.
And so I just did like a total hack job. This was my like compromise, which is like we cut the wires to the right length, but I didn't run them at all because I just wanted to make sure it worked. And then it worked, and I was like, cool, I'm not fucking touching it. I'm going to recalibrate it. I'm going to like do everything I need to do. And then I'm going to, on Monday, I told the Sugami guys, I'm like, hey, this is fucked up. Like the wiring's fucked up. You guys need to fix that. But it works now.
Right.
So,
I fixed it for you though.
Yeah. So your turn. And yeah, that was like annoying. It's like, I can't fucking wait. And then showed up on Saturday. We got there at like 8:30, and then like basically we had to get out of there by like 2:30. So it was just like a really like, we got both TMAs figured out. Like they both had the same issues, obviously. And then this like getting like, and prove that the macros that we had written for the other stuff worked. And the fucking, I forgot that the fucking, while we were going through this whole thing, like the tool changer hung up on the TMA, and like, I don't know. It's like, so basically the first time I fucking touched that machine. So it's like, where's the fucking manual? So like, we're just like rifling through the manual, and it's like, okay, so it says to do this. And then it says to go to touch the arrow keys to make it move. Like, all right. So like there's 2 sets of arrow keys on the control, physical arrow keys on the control. Mm-hmm. And like none of those are doing anything. And then you like push the arrow over soft key, and then like there's 4 arrow keys on the soft keys, and that's what you need to push. And it was just like, what is this? And so we got that unstuck, and it was just like such a fucking wonky experience. But like, yeah, I mean, it is I guess like controlled chaos in a way of I do just take it as it comes for the most part, and like try and break it down to like, all right, this nothing groundbreaking is happening here, you know, like it's a very, there's a simple solution to this. I know there's a simple solution to this. Like this, we fixed all the fucked up things like the power and whatever, like almost never would I have assumed that a wire was dead, like broken internally, but like that was kind of one of the weirdest things that I've seen. But like the skip signal stuff, the thing being hung up, like it's all very relatively like easy, like simple solutions. It's just like hard to like find what that is. And yeah, I mean, it's just like a lot of like, by the time the day was over, I was like fucking toast, dude. It was like, and like also I was basically staying up till like 2 a.m. like every day before that, you know,
right,
for like 2 weeks before that. Yeah. So it is like, I would say it's somewhere in between like a process and zap smash, but mostly it's just like zap smash because, like I call it brute forcing because I just like try something that I know like isn't going to be like catastrophic, you know, and just like, oh, that doesn't work. All right, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? What's the next thing? What's the next thing? And just like keep going, until like we eventually like land on the solution. But it's not like random, so to speak. It's all like there's a method to the madness, but I couldn't tell you what it is like right now or like for any given problem, because every problem is like fairly, that feels like a fucking dumb thing to say. It's like not every problem is like,
problem's unique.
Yeah, it's like, and it's not really, it's just like, it's just the problems will be the same, but the solution might not be the same for that given problem. You know what I mean? It's like when you go on like Stack Overflow or something, and you have this thing, or you're on like the Autodesk forums, and you're like, well, this person has like this solution, I'm like following this thing to a T and it's not fucking working for me. Or like my thing is like just ever so slightly like different than what is being described here. It's like 90% of the way there, but I have this one extra thing, or like this, I don't need to do this other step.
Mhm.
And now this tutorial like just doesn't fucking work all of a sudden.
Right.
It's like that.
Yeah. Oh, well, I'm glad you got through it, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know talking to you and Justin separately about it, it was kind of fun to hear both sides of the story.
Right. Yeah, because I mean, I'm probably like, oh, this sucks. You know?
Yeah. Well, like you were just like, this sucks. This is another day at the office. And Justin was like,
yeah,
this man is a wizard and he figured out this crazy shit. And like,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
All
like,
right.
yeah, it is just another day in the office, baby.
Yeah. Joe from Cobra Frame Building asked, Dylan, if part of what you sell at Protium is quick turnaround, how do you make decisions about maintaining that capacity for when you need it? Do you stock tools, materials, machines to maintain a state of preparedness for when a good customer needs something quickly? And how do you pass that cost on, in quotes, relative to a shop that runs 1 month out and only buys anything once a given job necessitates it? So I am very protective of my capacity. I've talked to a few people about this. Saying no is like the biggest thing. I would love 1 million customers but I know who pays my bills, and
Right.
I know who to say no to. And if it's not, quote unquote, a Protium part, and there's not good learning to be had or anything like that, it doesn't make sense for us to try to take it on. If it's a simple bracket, there's better people to do it cheaper. If it's a big part that just barely fits in my machines, again, it just doesn't make sense. I'm going to have to charge so much in opportunity costs that it just makes more sense to say no.
Right.
So that's a big part of it is really just learning when to say no, and even saying no to my current customers when it is a bad fit for us. Like, hey, totally understand you want us to make this spacer block, but like we're doing your 5-axis part right now, and I'm doing a, vacuum plate fixture for you next week. Like, these are the things that I do better. Sorry.
Right.
Stock tools. So we have standard tools in all 4 machines. They're 8 or 9 of them. We've talked about them on here before. We stock 1 for every machine plus 1 extra. And when we get down to the 1 extra, I reorder. Actually, maybe I have 2 extra now. I can't remember if I have 2 or 3 extra now, but I upped the number when we added the Hermla because now we had more machines relying on it. But I've got a little drawer system thing that has all of the tool numbers and little QR codes that take me to the website, even though I don't really use them anymore. But
did your grid line stuff show up?
Oh, it did. So today,
Nice.
today it showed up, which was fantastic. I'm super stoked to open it tomorrow.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, so all of our standard tools we stock extra of. That's something we change up fairly frequently too. So like I'm always ordering those. Materials, we have a fair bit on the shelf in terms of leftovers from cuts. Like we usually on quick turn stuff charge the customer for a foot or a 2-foot bar of whatever the material is for McMaster. We kind of lean pretty heavy on our MSC and McMaster relationships just so that we can get stuff as quick as we do. McMaster is always next day. MSC is usually next day.
Yeah.
We ordered something on Wednesday this week, and one of the boxes showed up on Thursday, and one of them just said, "We have your package in Sparks, Nevada." I'm like, "Yeah, it's supposed to be here though. Where is it? Why don't I have it in Tucson, Arizona?"
Right. Yeah.
But so like materials, we have some stuff on the shelf, but usually there is enough time in it that we can order from McMaster. And like, as far as passing on that cost, my customers are okay with me buying McMaster material at the end of the day. Like they know what they're asking for is a tough ask. Like, hey, we need these parts in 3 days. We need these parts in 5 days.
Right.
They're not sweating the extra money in material because they're, the way it was put to me from multiple friends is like, yeah, it might be an expensive part, but like you don't know how many engineers or high up people are working on this project that you're working on. And if they are having to wait an extra day, you know, like $300,000 a year engineers waiting for a day is a lot of money. They're just sitting on their hands for a day waiting for your parts. It's a lot of money. So like very often you kind of have to price parts in terms of what their value is to the customer and not what their value is in cost of like materials plus time kind of stuff.
Right. Yeah. So that makes perfect sense to me. I mean, like, yeah, if they want it fast, they want it good. You're like, just let me cook, man.
Right.
You know, yeah. At this point, I imagine it's like not even a question.
It's very rarely is a question. I've got a couple customers that will come back and say like, oh, this was more expensive than I thought. And I'll just say like, well,
sorry.
this, and this. Like, hey, the material was actually this much money if I want it tomorrow because, you know, like stainless steel plate on McMaster is expensive. Like it just is what it is.
Yeah, exactly.
And, you know, I'll say like, oh, the material is this much. This is how much time I have to rough with a tiny tool because you wanted that feature. You know, this is why it costs that much. And they're like, all right, go. Let's see tomorrow kind of thing.
Right.
So,
and it's like, that's cool. Yeah. And it's like, I think it's like, if I may, I think it's like a thing about being effective versus efficient, you know, is like your capacity is based around being able to be like effectively meet your customers' needs. Like, and efficiency isn't your like number one priority. It's just like hitting deadlines and making sure your customers are happy. Where like I have customers who will like straight up just run stuff just to run stuff because they need to hit that OEE, you know, like literally just like making shit to inventory because like, oh, the machine cannot sit. And it's like, why? It's like, cause our OEE will be bad. It's like, do you need the parts? No, but our OEE. And you're like, what? And like, it almost becomes like a little bit of like insanity for like where you're at, you know, where like you like in terms of like opportunity costs is like, and like you wanting to have like 1 million customers is like, if your machine is tied up, then you can't do like with bullshit that like, I mean, literally what you said is like, if your machine is tied up with bullshit that you don't need, when something that is necessary comes along, you're fucking hosed, you know? Mm-hmm. And it's just such like it becomes like a weird situation.
Yeah. And to that point, like we have a very high minimum order dollar amount.
Right.
Like it doesn't matter if I'm putting one hole in a piece of stock plate for you. It costs like a lot.
Yeah.
And that
it's like $6,000, baby.
I wish no. Our minimum is not that high, but it's like one of those things that we had to realize where anything Brad and I do has to be charged the same amount. Like we used to have like, oh, this is high-end work shop rate and this is low-end work shop rate.
Yeah.
And then we realized like, oh, if I'm running at my low-end shop rate and I can't run a high-end part now because of that, I've now lost the difference in those two.
Yeah.
You know, every hour I'm losing that difference. So it sucks sometimes. Like I can't help people because I know it doesn't make any sense, but we just have to be super protective of our time.
Yeah. It is just like a bizarre thing when you like get there, like when you get to that point where you're like, oh, I am fucking worth it. You know, it's like very bizarre to feel like when you're just charging what you're worth and you're like, oh yeah, like it can feel weird.
It is because I know like I don't want to charge somebody my minimum for a bracket. And like that is very often when I will just say no, or like, hey, I don't think I'm the right shop for this. Here are 2 other people you should contact because I think that they you know have a lower shop rate or they can fit it into their schedule better. But like, you know, and sometimes I will just say like, hey, this is our minimum, or like this is about what this is going to cost. Here's some other people that I think are going to be cheaper, just to, you know, let them down easy. Like I want to give them an idea. I want to give them a way to get their part made. That's not Xometry.
Yeah.
But and I don't want to come across as pompous about this. Like it's just a very much like a matter of fact thing where it's like, hey, we're only two people. I have to charge what we're worth, kind of thing.
Right. I mean, I completely get it. I was just talking to my customer about that today, like how nobody said no to me for like all year, and now I have like way too much work, and it's like, and I'm just like getting crushed, and like still able to like mostly make everybody happy, you know? I mean, like there's frustrations, but at least like we can like make it up by just like crushing, but like I shouldn't have to. And it is like when people, and now like with this retainer and everything, it's like, well, I don't want to do that. And it's like, well, I want to pay this. And it's like, no, bye. Like, you know, it's like, it's just like this, the whole point of like doing it is like, and it feels weird sometimes to say no, right? To like, especially if you like them or whatever, you're like, no, sorry. Can't do it. But it's like,
well, but like if you got to a job and someone had left the machine a complete mess and you had to sweep for an hour to like actually start your work, you're not going to charge them less for that hour. You're like, dude, I was on site and it's your fault, kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, now it's like certain things where it's like, if I'm on the phone with you for an hour troubleshooting like bullshit things, like where do files go, I'm fucking charging for that hour, you know?
Yeah.
Like if we have,
because it's an hour you could have been making, doing what is worth $200 an hour, kind of thing.
Right. Especially if I'm like at a customer talking to this other customer, and it's like, this is like, it's like, well, this is going to push my day a whole hour further over here. So.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see. LHM Engineering also was asking favorite tabbing saw, Hoffman, etc., and ones that you have tried. So we only have two that we really like. We have that Hoffman one, works great in plastics and aluminum. If you need the parts number, feel free to reach out and I'll give it to you. It's a M16 threaded arbor from Hoffman, and then the one I use is an 80 millimeter saw from them that bolts onto the bottom of it. And the other one we use is a 1-inch carbide slitting saw, not slitting saw. It's like a carbide 30 thou key seat cutter, I think is how they classify it, from Harvey. That's like on a stainless steel or a steel shank.
Oh, cool.
And we use that in, for like tiny stainless parts, and that has lasted a surprising amount of time at this point. Like
I was figuring you were going to say it was like an internal tool or something.
Yeah, no, we bought it for like some random job, and then I tried it in stainless one day and was like, this worked really well. And then Brad has used it a ton in stainless, and every time we use it, I'm like, man, it sounds really good, and how has it not blown up yet? Sure,
it's a hero.
Yeah. Happy to dig that part number out too. I have no idea what it is off the top of my head. I think it's a 1-inch diameter with a 3/8 shank.
Right.
And then 30 thou thick, I believe. And it's, 16 teeth or something. I don't know. It's a fairly
sick.
Yeah, it's cool. Justin from PDX also asked, thoughts on the Haas UMC 400? Significant improvements or incremental?
It's too expensive.
Yeah. You and I talked about it like immediately.
Said that. It's the same fucking thing they did with I would say incremental improvement over what? Like the U350, the UMC 350. Like I would say it's an improvement over that, because it's more of it's not like combining, what is it? Like the UMC 350 was basically like a DM2 with a TRT 160 bolted to it, I think. Something
like that, yeah. And then the normal one was a DT with the TRT 100, I think.
Yeah, trash. And this one is more like a normal UMC construction, but like still with like a TRT 210, I want to say, as the trunnion that's like unsupported in the front. And I think it's like right around $100,000 right now. And the at least like that's what it's listed on the website. And the UMC 500 is listed on sale at like $114, which is like not that much money for like 7 inches in X of travel and 5 inches of travel in Y and 3 inches of travel in Z, I
Yeah.
want to say. And like,
I was going to
what
look
the
it up, but their website is currently down for maintenance.
Classic.
Of course.
They're probably removing it right now because it shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
And I think the like the UMC 400 the UMC 400 SS was more expensive than the UMC 500 standard, which is like, dude, that machine needs to be like 90,000 for the standard and like maybe 100 for the SS version, which is like not a lot, but like it's way too close to the 500 for it to catch fire, in my opinion. Like, in what situation are you going with the 400 unless you're like super space limited, I suppose?
Yeah. They talk about it fitting into a 7-foot cube, I think, if I remember right.
Right.
Which, sure, I guess if you really want a UMC and you can't fit a 500 but can fit a 400, maybe it'll be okay. But also, man, buyer beware of any first gen Haas UMC.
That's it.
Like, every single one of them has had issues, like major issues.
Major. I mean, like apparently the UMC 350 was so bad they just fucking scrapped it, you know?
Right.
I mean, or it's like EDU only or whatever.
Yeah.
But they're like, I mean, and I thought that thing was gonna like rip, but then again, it's just like way too close to the 500. I don't know what the 500 is a proven platform. Nobody's gonna like jump on that bandwagon. I mean, people will, but probably not enough people.
Right. Yeah. I think, like you said, it's just priced too much because the SS is 119 starting.
Right. No good. I mean, and like the SS, like the only thing the SS gives you over the standard, I mean, like, which isn't nothing, but it's not a lot. If you're like, is faster rotary speeds, which if you're not doing like full 5 stuff, kind of negligible advantage for like being more expensive than the 500 in most cases.
Yeah. The new widescreen control looks interesting though.
I'm into that. I'm way into that. But
definitely looks like more modern, I would say, for sure.
Yeah, the weird carbon fiber thing is interesting, but the widescreen looks sick.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll see at IMTS what it looks like in person. Like the 350, I walked up and within about 10 seconds was just like, oh, this is not going to go well for them. And clearly it didn't last one IMTS cycle.
Right. Yeah,
you know,
pretty bad. Pretty bad.
So I hope for everyone's sake that this looks like more of a complete machine.
Yeah.
But
I think,
we'll see.
I think that's why they went with like the more quote unquote traditional UMC construction for it to try and get it. I just think it's $10,000 too expensive. Easy.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course, I mean, knowing Haas, it will likely go on sale immediately.
Right.
So,
yeah. I mean, if that thing was, I mean, I could see them selling a shitload of them if it was, I mean, you'd make it like 85, 90,000. Really, like, if you made it 85,000 so you could get like probing and high speed machining, and maybe like high pressure coolant brings you up to 100. That's a deal. Like, I think that's pretty good. Or maybe like a faster spindle or whatever. But like starting at 100, like, I don't know, man. Fucks me up.
Yeah.
It's just too close.
It is just too expensive when compared to the 500 when it's on sale. It's like spend the extra 13 grand or finance the other 13 grand
right
at 0% like Haas very often does, you know?
Yeah.
Like if you can't make 13 extra grand with it in the first year,
right,
you know, you might have to reevaluate some stuff, I think.
Right. Because that's like, what is that? At 0%, it's an extra $220 a month, you know?
Yeah.
It's like a kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah. So yeah, if between those two, I don't see the point, especially the 400 SS being 119, being more expensive than the 500 on sale is like, whoa.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
guys,
a bad look. It's a real bad look.
So I don't know. I maybe I'll be proven wrong. Maybe we'll both be proven wrong and it'll be great at IMTS. that would be fantastic, right?
Yeah. Probably see the DC1 rip in there.
That'll be interesting for sure. All right. So Leif Makes Stuff says, this is a question for you, meaning me. You mentioned previously reducing your shop's standard tolerance to plus or minus 2 thou. What are some things you've done in your shop to achieve this, whether it's through processes, tooling, workflows, etc.? All of the above. Yeah. So we were kind of forced by a customer. Like all of their stuff is pretty much blanket plus or minus 2. And we were doing enough of their work that it was like, all right, we're just going to make shop tolerance this. Because like if it's good enough for them, it's good enough for about anybody.
Right.
And it goes into a lot, like it's everything, it's all the little things. Like that's why we bought Power Grip. That's why we bought good work holding. That's why we, especially tooling. I would say we switched a long time ago to Destiny tooling for aluminum. And then Freza has joined them because their grind tolerance, you will notice, is significantly better than anybody else in the market. Like Destiny, for I think all of their aluminum tooling is minus 1/10, minus 3/10 on the diameter.
Hell yeah.
And then you go to, helical or something, and it's like plus or minus 1 thou.
Yeah.
And it's like that. Technically, going from one tool to the other, I could eat up my entire shop tolerance.
Right. Which is fucked.
Yeah. And then Freza is all H6 stuff. So that is diameter dependent, but it's still, plus nothing, minus 5/10 maybe on a 3/8 or something.
Right. Right.
And then as far as processes, it took a lot of work. We had to fail a lot to figure out like, oh, we need to repeat finish pass on everything pretty much. Because like maybe it'll cut it perfect, but like why would I care? Like just run like you said earlier.
Yeah.
I'm not going for cycle time. I'm going to not have to comp this tool and run it again.
Yeah. I do the same thing. I just have that checkbox checked and just like hit that 3 button, save as user default. So it's like I don't ever think about it. Just let it run twice. Who cares?
Yeah. And like takes all the taper out, and it just means that the tool cuts what it's actually going to cut. Like if I comp it from there, what I comp is what I'm going to get. I'm not going to get some weird leftover deflection kind of thing.
And like with the size of parts that you're doing, you're talking like 5 seconds.
Right.
Like
even
like
on bigger
almost,
parts, it's like,
yeah,
I've had it before where it repeat finish pass because I have all these little pockets is like an extra 2 or 3 minutes or 5 minutes. And it's like, whatever. I don't have to monkey with it. It just works.
Yeah. It's always funny to see like when you leave it on for like a chamfer and you're just like double dipping on your chamfers and you're like, those chamfers are fucking tight.
They look great. Yeah. So yeah, there is no one silver bullet for us. It is doing basically everything in our power to improve every little process that little bit. And it's worked, like, and that's not to say that I don't comp tools and that I don't scrap parts. It happens. It just happens a lot less. And it's a lot easier. It's a lot easier, especially on parts that are based on mostly on our stock tools or our standard tools. Very often I can throw one of those in and only have to dial in whatever, additional tooling, like a thread mill I might dial in. But even then the Moldinos, like I know, okay, negative 2/10 of wear on almost any of them. And it's going to be a perfect hole first time.
Yeah. As long as it doesn't rip the holder out.
Listen, Brad decided to remind me of that earlier today. I don't need to be reminded twice. Thanks, Chris.
You're welcome.
Live and learn. We have been using those OSG ones a little bit more in aluminum because of that, but they also don't have TSC holes down past 1/4 inch maybe or 1032, which sucks because like the 1/4 inch one just rips.
Yeah. That's the interesting thing, like with Freza too, like I was like, I'd need to use a 2.5 millimeter tool. And I'm like, do you have like a through coolant thing? And he's like, no, we don't. And it's like too small.
Yeah.
I'm like, what the fuck, dude? Pop a hole in that bitch. Where's the EDM at?
Yeah. Then as far as workflows, we've learned a lot about processing thinner parts, roughing, and then doing like an unclamp and reclamp in Op2 to relieve any stress, learning when to cut datums, what side of the part to cut it on, if it's a 3-axis workflow, or when to cut it on the Hermla versus when I'm roughing certain things. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely not it. Like, I think that there's a million little things that we do, but like those are the big things that for sure.
Right. It's like one of those things, like it's an interesting conversation because like everything you've described is like at a high level, very like simple, It's like we have good shit and we have playbooks for parts and whatever. It's like, but that's not like, you can tell somebody that, like you can tell Leif that, and like it will take him a while to dial that in because like the process is simple but not easy necessarily because it's different tooling, different processes, different whatever. I mean, it's so gnarly in that regard.
Oh yeah. Well, and like we experiment all the time, continually experiment. Like that we found Freza after tons of different tooling brands. We tried GWS stuff. We tried, I'm not trying to like chase the newest, hottest stuff, but like when I hear about something and do some research, it's like, all right, we'll buy a couple and try them out. We'll do this and try them out. And like, we've settled on what we've settled on after a lot of experimentation and a lot of failure. And, I've talked to a lot of people about YG1 stuff, and I think their alu power end mills are some of the best value in the market.
Right.
But in our testing, the edges are so sharp that they break down very quickly and start streaking after a few parts. And like, because these are our standard tools, I need them to last a few weeks or a month without doing that, without having to change them constantly. So like it's just that kind of stuff that you learn through testing and testing and testing.
And that is like your surface finish requirement too, and like your internal standards. Like that might be fine for somebody to use for like months, like the streaking might be okay for somebody else, but it's just not the Protium way.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, and I guess I didn't say this earlier, but like, I got to, speaking of experimenting, Justin let me like really fucking rip with the AXFPS on the brother.
Yeah.
I was like, can I try something real quick?
You abused that thing. I mean, you didn't, but like, man, that was terrifying.
Well, the first one I abused, like that one, like I was like, well, technically you should be able to do this cut. And I didn't, in my heart of hearts, I knew it wasn't going to work, but I still had to give it the good old college try. Anyway, the second one, I knew that was going to work. It was just like that. I mean, the PG-15, like the half inch tool is like, or the half-inch collet is like nothing, It's basically like stuck in there with like duct tape and bubble gum.
Yeah.
And so it was like, well, we'll give it a go at like, like basically as fast as the machine would go in like 20-degree ramp. And it's like, yeah.
I can't believe, like I did 10 degrees a couple days later in the Hermla, and even that was terrifying. And like, I mean, it was exceptionally terrifying too, because I forgot I changed it. Like I changed it and then changed a few other things while a part was running. And then an hour later reloaded the program and hit cycle start and expected a completely different cut. It was just like, wow. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, let me do some test cutting on that Hermla, dude.
We'll wait until I get another one, and then you can do some test cutting.
I'll do it at Freysia. Be like, let me do the 25-degree ramp.
Yeah.
I like max whatever, max everything. But yeah. Yeah, it is interesting when you like see that, because like probably like 4 months ago, it's like, wow, 10-degree ramp at 100 inches a minute is like pretty it's fucking moving. But then you do it at like, 20-degree ramp at like 200 inches a minute, and you're like, yeah, you get to the bottom of that pocket real fast.
Yeah, it's more or less drilling at that point.
Yeah.
Insane, absolutely insane.
Yeah.
Alrighty, man. Well, let's wrap this up with some questions. What did you research this week?
I I don't know. I feel like my brain is like mush right now, but I want to say it's like mostly macro stuff. Oh, no, today I'll say like today it was like we've been having a lot of problems with the G10,
Hmm.
essentially turning into mud in the like it is so in everything that like I ran an 18-minute program today and it overflowed the coolant, like because
No.
it was just like everywhere. And that was that was like a nightmare for me because like I was in the shop by myself and like I don't know where most of this shit is. So like I started mopping. I found the mop bucket. I started mopping up the coolant and then like I went to move it and then dumped the fucking mop bucket out and I was like, and like, you know, those moments where it's like, well, now everything's dirty to me, and I'm like getting frustrated because things are dirty. So it's like they grind knives in there, so the entire shop is like covered in dust.
Mhm.
And I was like, everything's dusty. I hate everything. But so basically, like we were spending a lot of time, like, how can we kind of have to like pivot away from our plans of doing like full pallets of knife handles because we just cannot run for it would run for like 2 hours and like we just don't have a good solution for the to keep the coolant clean at the moment in a way that's not gonna like overflow, so
Oh,
that
that's
sucks.
frustrating.
Yeah, yeah, so that was like most of what we were like looking at today. Um and I kind of want to like in a cheap way, like because there's obviously solutions that are like very very expensive, but you can kind of do like a weird like sediment trap type of thing where I kind of want to like capture the coolant before it like goes into the drain or into the filter and like just do like a gravity like kind of like waterfall like sediment thing and like then put it back. um I mean, it wouldn't be like the most elegant solution, but keeps the if it keeps the like mud from getting in onto the filter, because that's what it does. So, like it clogs up the filter, and
Right.
then it overflows.
Does EJ have any ideas?
Uh, his idea is very expensive.
Oh, fair
Um,
enough.
yeah, but I was like, well, he used to do the first iteration of the filter was like uh wavy, for more surface area. And I hit him up and was like, yo, dude, if you did like, can you bring that back? And like the XL, because essentially like all the troughs, like the valleys, would act as like sediment traps, and you'd still be able to get like decent flow, more or less. But he's like, no. Uh, he has another product, but it's like 10 grand or something like that, which like I
Oh,
think it's a centrifugal something or other, and it works really well. He showed me like pictures and videos of it, and I do not deny that it works. It is the solution, but
yeah,
it's
but
also
when it's
$10,000.
when it's an eighth of the machine cost or whatever, like
Exactly. It's a tough, like it's a very tough pill to swallow, and like I don't know, my mind goes to like really wonky places sometimes because I'm like, well, like what if we like built this like sediment trap thing like into, because it's pretty much after we're done like machining pallets and stuff, all it's gonna do is cut like G10 and micarta. It's like, what if we built like a sediment trap like that's in the sump, you know? And like
mhm.
I don't know if that even makes sense, but it might work. I'm just like trying to think of like just being cheap, you know.
Right.
Like because I mean this is like we just need to. At the end of the day, the machine needs to be running to make money, to be able to afford the shit like that. It's kind of like a catch-22 situation,
Hmm.
unfortunately.
Yeah, that's frustrating. That's so
Yeah,
frustrating. Like that is it's stuff like that is why we don't do any composites because like it
yeah, and
just
that
sucks.
right. And I was like talking to Galen, and I'm like, if we can figure out like a pretty like decent way to do this, that like might be a product in and of itself, you know.
Oh
If you
yeah,
can like
plenty of
make
knife
it
makers out
not
there
a
making stuff.
yeah, like not a nightmare to deal with, because he is like, why doesn't why don't people do this? And it's like, and now he gets it, you know, why nobody wanted to make these things for him. And it's like, because it fucks up your machine. And if your machine isn't dedicated to this, like his is, it becomes like, now in terms of like opportunity costs, like you got to take your machine down for like hours to suck all the coolant out. Like, and if you don't have a Freddy or whatever, like that's going to fucking ruin your day. Which is what we ended up doing today, is just like cleaning the coolant completely. Like just suck it all out. Like, fuck it. Because there was like this, like about an inch of mud on the bottom of the tank. And it was like, once we cleaned it, like now we have good flow because it's just like not in everything. Because once it overflows, once the filter overflows once, you're fucking hosed. Now it's in everything. And you just keep like shooting it back on. Like, you could see it, like how it wears the tools down. Like you're just like shooting fucking fiberglass back onto your tools. The finishes look like, and like an aluminum and shit, look like and aluminum look like shit.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, you have to do like really like how you normally would cut, just like doesn't work.
Yeah.
You have to be like very careful and slow and whatever. But yeah, so that's kind of the research, and that was all like today. I mean, I guess you're on that Brother 5-axis life, or
that was a lot of my research this week for sure. Yeah, just I don't know, checking and double checking and making sure that everything I thought I did correctly was right. And turned out all right.
You getting sleepy on me? You getting sleepy over here?
I'm tired, man. Like I was just looking at the clock, like, oof.
Yeah. Why do we do this to ourselves?
I don't know. I thought we started earlier than we did, but I was looking through my phone.
Don't worry, it's fine. And I'm like, all right.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm in no rush. Like, dude, we're gonna record for like fucking 5 hours.
I think that was a leftover energy drink from today, and then now it's like, all right, it's time for you to go to bed, Dylan. All right. Well, so give me just the tip of the week. What you got?
Well, just for a second, just to see how it feels, I would say, probably just like, I'm going to say, take it slow, take it real slow. And mostly like, I was telling you this before we started, recording, really, is like, I've just been helping a lot of people like troubleshoot this week, in addition to like all the other stuff that we're doing. And like, mostly it, like really, it's just like, I just like would encourage people to like take a step back and like breathe when they're solving a problem, and like really like think about what is happening, which is like kind of an obvious thing to say, but the logic leaps that some people make are pretty fascinating. People are like, oh, well, my drill is like, ultimately like a problem ends up being like the drill is walking. And it's like, well, that's obviously the machine is fucked up. And you're like, oh, what? Like, how did you get there? It's like, well, it's like the drill moves randomly, and it's like, but all my mill features are good. And you're like, right. So your drill is walking.
Yeah. So the machine's like, probably good.
Yeah, it's like everything is fine. It's like, just like think about, it's like, but people told me, it's like, well, fucking people lie to you, dude. Like, I don't know what you want me to tell you. Like, fuck them. Like they, like, and I mean, I just like kind of like coupling that with what I said last time, which is like, if somebody is suggesting, like, if you have a thought that you want to try and somebody's like, well, don't try that, and you're like, why? And they don't have a fucking reason why, then they're just talking out of their ass, more or less. And like if there's no reason to justify what is happening, like, and why, like, to back up their position, then it's just like more or less a like quote unquote tribal knowledge that somebody probably said to them, and they've just like done it that way forever, and they don't know why they're doing it anymore. So like in this case, it's like, oh, your drill's walking, spot the hole. And people are telling him, don't spot it. Like, you don't need to. It's like, but why?
But
like,
try.
Yeah, it's like
that will not make it worse.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the situation does not get worse. It can only improve, and it did improve. So it's like it's like it's really like, but the big one is like just calm down. If you're like frustrated and like trying to solve a problem, like being frustrated at the issue isn't going to like improve your situation any. Take some deep breaths and like think about it from a logical standpoint, and like you said, like going like back to basics, but not like so back to basics that you're having like an existential crisis, essentially, where it's like what is more logical, my drill walking or my machine being totally fucked, like
out of nowhere without a crash. Yeah.
Right. And only in this one instance and stuff. And so it's like just calm down, relax, think about it, process. Like, I mean, it's a lot easier said than done, because like, if you don't know, like if you've never really been taught like good problem solving skills or whatever, cause like it is a skill, like it can be difficult, but like step one is just like think about what, like stop, like breathe, assess the situation. Right. And, what is it? Anything you change, like when you change things and try and go after it, like do it if you can, one at a time, one thing at a time.
Yeah. Like scientific method, baby.
Yeah. Don't like add a spot and change your speed and change your feed and change your pec and whatever. Cause it's like, and that was like an interesting thing. Cause it's like, should I do all this? And it's like, you should not do any of that. Yeah. It's like, what about this? And like, what about that? It's like the mission is the spot drill. That's it. Yeah. The mission's the spot drill. It's like, what next? It's like, we'll talk about what's next once you do this. Yeah. Like, but right now, just put the fucking spot drill in and don't change the drill. Don't do anything. Just put the spot drill in and see what happens. Like, and then we'll go down the line and figure it out from there. But like one thing at a time. And that scares people, like, which makes sense, especially because like you're wasting time trying to fix this problem. But like the easy button, technically is just like interpolate the fucking holes and call it a day. Right. But if you really want to figure out what's going on with the drill, then it might take you all fucking day. And it took us like basically like 6 hours of the day to like figure it out. And the spot helped. Changing the drill didn't help. But pecking with a through coolant drill that doesn't have through coolant, and through coolant drills don't like to peck anyway, also wasn't helping. And he's only going 600 thou deep, so we just shot it, and he's like, "Oh, that did it," and it's like done. Yeah, nailed it.
Well, and you can extrapolate that to like kind of going back to Joe's question and like and Leif's question. You can use that same kind of methodology to make prototype parts.
Yes.
Like you can test. Like there's very often, like if I have a feature that uses a tool that I've never used before or makes a feature that I've never made before, I'll test it in a scrap block of the same kind of material and like make sure that it inspects correctly, because nothing costs me more than having to remake parts. Like I can be super speedy, and if I get through 3 ops and I scrap it on the 3rd op and I don't have a second one that I ever brought up with me, I'm screwed. That's so much time wasted.
Yeah, I say it all the time. I tell my customers this all the time. We're going to make good parts, then we're going to make fast parts, but we're not making fast parts first, because we'll just make a bunch of garbage. I mean, we can make we can make garbage really fast. It's fucking easy.
Yeah. Is that what you want to make? Like garbage really easy? Yeah. So I guess to sum up your tip, it is take things back to basics. Don't catastrophize.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, easier said than done, but I'll throw it out there. I will allow people to like, if you have a problem and you want to like talk it out, I mean, hit me up. I will give you some time. But like, I will also be like, I say this a lot, which is like, okay, I'm going to hang up on you now, and I'll just hang up because I have to go do something. So
I love that.
But yeah, I mean, like if you're stuck, like I'll give you something if I can. But I also will hang up on you if I need to go do something else.
Love it. My tip of the week is more practical again.
Yeah.
Somebody was talking about it on the Discord, and I just wanted to reiterate it, more publicly for everyone. If you're inspecting stuff on a granite surface plate or a CMM or something, and you need some way to hold the part, modeling clay works incredibly well and is very cheap and does not damage your part and holds it fairly tight. And like, you got to realize there's no cutting forces on a CMM.
Right.
So like, clay is
It's
more
hitting
than
it
enough
with like 5 grams of force or something like that, which is like dropping a nickel on it.
Yeah. So like, I buy quite a bit of I buy it in bulk and I'll use it over the course of a year. But Claytune is the brand that I use. That's what we used at my last job. And so I just copied that because it works so well. Yeah. And it's cheap. It's easy. It's like, I think it's oil based, so it's pretty easy to wash off parts. It'll stain parts in the beginning, like not permanently, but you'll see color left over and like oil staining. And then as you use it, you kind of soak the oil into your hands and into and it works great. And
it works well too with like setting tools on the PG if you can't like hard stop to it. It works good.
What I use for that is the man, I'm gonna space what it's called. It's the blue tack stuff or the green tack stuff that watchmakers use.
Sure.
Rodico, that's what it is.
Yeah.
So Rodico I use to dab tools off for the laser when I'm going to set them, and then I have a little block of it sitting next to where I load tools in the Hermla, and then I'll just pick off the tiniest little bit and use that to stick the tools into the PG collets.
Fuck yeah. That's cool. That's a good tip.
All right. Give me a win from this week.
I would say it's not my win, really, like not my direct win, but like a ZC win is just like fucking John. Absolutely. Like, we got first retainer customer, brand new customer for us. They've never worked with us before. It was just like some guy on, I can say like Dynamic Kyle on Instagram. He like recommended us based off of like the IG stuff and LinkedIn shit, and his boss hit us up and like he was not happy with our first proposal and like was cool with the retainer. And so like getting that new customer and then John just like absolutely fucking crushing the first program right out of the gate is like massive,
Yeah.
It's like brand new everything, and we like completely just crushed. And so I'm super happy with that. That was amazing.
That's killer, man. I am stoked for you.
I'm like really fucking pumped. Really, really pumped.
John seems like he's working out great too.
He works really well. Like, we'll chat like fairly frequently, like pretty much every day, obviously, but I can just like let him go. We went over Camplete for like 30 minutes, made sure that it was working correctly, and he was fine. Like, he just got it and like was able to like post and like get the customer code and everything, and like it's incredible. Like it's different. I don't like I was saying before, like obviously I've had employees that cut, but like I would say that he is like actually like an extension of me more than I've ever had before, like we just work on the same wavelength, which is like just understanding the mission more, that like however they need it is how we're going to do it. And it's not like, which is a hard thing to do for this type of work, which is you can't always just like do things how you want to do them.
Right.
You know what I mean?
You can't just impose your will. You're like, this is what they want.
Yeah. And like, that's a difficult thing to like deal with sometimes, is like, well, being fluid enough to just be like, okay, whatever you need. What machine are you putting it on? Okay, no problem. You want it to cut, you need it to be in this orientation? Okay, no problem. Like, and just like making parts, it's hard. And that's like, that's also like a learned skill and like really a personality trait. And he fucking crushes that. So super dope.
That's killer, dude.
Yeah.
I'm stoked for you.
Thanks.
I think the win for this week is kind of obvious. Like,
Yeah.
running parts in the U500, having it go well. That was a win. That was a big win.
Just absolutely, yeah. I mean, like we know what's happening next. You're gonna be like, you're like humoring people at IMTS because you set up these meetings already.
Actually, I think everyone I'm talking to at IMTS is not machine tool people.
Oh, interesting.
It's like CMM stuff and software for that, and
right.
Yeah, I don't think anything that I don't think anybody that I'm supposed to meet, like anything I have to do, has anything to do with machines.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that's
hell
good.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, let's get out of here while we're still somewhat lucid.
Yeah. I'm not lucid. I've already forgot how this started.
Yeah, I think both of our speech has become worse as we got on.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Thank you all for
listening.
Yeah. Thank you all for listening. Thanks to the Patreon members who make the show possible. Thanks to Taylor from Aero Garage, Jeremy, and Ash. Thank you guys for joining the Patreon. Makes the show possible. Lets me and Chris talk late into the night. Thank you all for listening, and I will be back next week.